I know. Have you ever seen Mary Poppins? All that shit.
Kids, I started listening to 11D Life back when I was your age. And since then, not only is, yes, my marriage better, my dogs are more well behaved. They don't crap in my yard anymore. They crap in my neighbor's yard. It's great. And my Lucky Charms taste better.
Welcome to the 11D Life podcast.
Hey guys, Matt here. Welcome to this week's episode of 11D Life. I could not be happier that you're here. I hope that all of you had a wonderful and safe July 4th weekend. Mine was probably the most fun that I've had in many, many years of celebrating July 4th. It was just kind of unfortunate that I had a physical with the doctor today, which is the day after July 4th. So I had to make a point to let my doctor know, hey, this is not me every day. This is me after July 4th. After copious amounts of beer and sunshine. Hey, a huge what's up and high fives to everybody who is over at the new 11D Life Facebook group. Man, it is growing by leaps and bounds every week, and you guys are just posting the most fun stuff on there. So keep it coming. Let us know what you think about the episodes. You guys are our core. We read every single thing that gets posted on that Facebook group, and it's a great way to provide feedback about the show, to agree, to disagree with what you've heard on the show, but also to find friends to talk about it with. That's the best part. So if you haven't done that, check it out. Hey, to all of the DJs, remixers, artists that are listeners of the show, hey, we still have the remix competition going on. Just want to give you a friendly little reminder that you can download the stems to our song Inside Out by going to 1187isalive.com and grabbing it there. Winner of the remix competition wins every single item in the Rock Candy online store, which those of you who are supporting the podcast and who are supporting Rock Candy probably already been there and gotten yourself a t-shirt or whatever it is that you found that you wanted. This week, I get to sit down with my brand new friend, Clifford Stumme. Although most of you will probably know him by his superhero alter ego, the Pop Song Professor. He has an incredible YouTube channel that does deep dives into pop songs and into pop lyrics and kind of takes them apart. He is a college professor and he is a mega smart dude about all things pop. And if you love sort of pontificating, thinking about pop music on a deeper level and demanding more of the pop that you're consuming, demanding more from the pop that you're consuming on a daily basis, man, I think that you're going to really love Clifford. Davey and I got to sit down with him about a week ago and we were absolutely enchanted, and I'm sure that you will be as well. I promised myself that I would not be long-winded with the intro this episode, and I'm not going to be. I love you guys. I'm happy that you're here. Can't wait for you to hear this episode. Let's make it happen.
Hello.
Hey, did you get it sorted?
Yep. It is all figured out now.
Awesome. What's your podcast setup like? Or is your like interface crapping out? Or
well, it mostly wasn't set up, but I had also forgotten how to set it up. So the technical difficulties more resided within my own mind, because I was looking at the back and I was like, there's supposed to be something plugged in here, right? Well, there's one thing plugged in. There can't be more than one thing needing to be plugged in here. So right. I had to plug in like 2 or 3 things actually, but yeah, now it's all working.
That's great. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So it's good to finally get you on the show.
Yeah. It's good to meet you guys.
Davey and I were checking out some of your other videos and commenting about just how brazenly white you are.
You're so white.
You're so white.
Which we're really white too. So
particularly when talking about hip hop music. But you're in great company because I feel like for us, hip hop is kind of like a go-to. It's almost like the candy bar of music. There's something kind of fun and quirky about it. But if you're like a lot of times, especially like with all the more modern like pop stuff, if you're looking for like a deep dive or like something to mean something
or nutritional value
or anything other than just like blatant over sexualization of everything. Like we were watching the pineapple video.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And now we can't stop like going around like making up lyrics to a new pineapple song.
Yeah, but to be fair, pineapples do have nutritional value.
We were also wondering why he didn't fit like a SpongeBob reference into that song, because that would have made it my all-time favorite.
Honestly, that would have made it even better. There are so many ways you could have improved it, and they don't all have to be deep lyrics, but alas.
It's true.
Yeah, I get into a bad spot where I expect too much out of people, I'm afraid, but we can dream.
So this is awesome. Tell me how you got started, because like for our audience, I found out about you because I'd actually come across a few of your YouTube videos before, but just kind of like didn't think anything of it, just like kind of pop up on your YouTube feed or something. And then you did a video where you mentioned our band, and I still would not have known about that video, except that one of your viewers came and commented on one of our videos and was like, hey, so glad that the Pop Song Professor suggested you guys. And then I was like, Pop Song Professor? That sounds kind of interesting. So then I went and checked you out. This is how unromantic our our social copulation is at this point. But yeah, it was great. And then I literally spent like the next couple hours like checking out your videos, and I thought they were really fun, and that we could probably have a fun conversation, because I also used to teach college.
Oh, cool. So, yeah. Yeah, no, it's been a long journey from complete anonymity to finally being on 11D Life's podcast, but I have to say that every step along the way.
Started from the bottom.
You can check out now.
No, I actually deleted my YouTube account right before I got on the podcast. I'm like, all right, I'm pinnacle. I peaked. There's nothing more for me. Like J.K. Rowling after she writes Harry Potter. I mean, just why keep writing books? You can't do any better than that.
Well, she should keep writing until she gets on the 11D Life podcast, and then she can talk bits. Yeah, that's J.K.
That's a fair point.
Right.
I was just like Googling song lyrics at one point, and I had like this really boring job. I was an administrative assistant. They gave me about 4 hours worth of work to do the entire week, and then I would just sit there waiting for people to come into the office. And so I started a blog explaining lyrics, and then started a podcast, then a YouTube channel. And then I explained a lot of pop songs that were really boring, and I was like, screw this. I want to talk about songs that are actually interesting. So made a video that included you guys.
That's really fun. I feel very honored to have been mentioned on your show. Tell me like a little bit more about how. So you kind of got started in this by accident. What did you get your degree in?
My bachelor's was in English and my master's was in English, and I'm working on a PhD in higher education administration now. So that's largely more boring than the other two. But
so you're like you're in the college game for life. Yeah. Like you want to be there for a while. The university I work at, they don't have tenure, unfortunately. One day. But if my YouTube channel all of a sudden, based on the 11D Life podcast, being here, and I get like 1 million subscribers tomorrow, which I'm very much counting on. Higher ed might miss out on a lot of what I have to offer, but that's true.
We'll see. I had just graduated with the master's in English, so I was like analyzing everything, and then I was listening to like Mumford and Sons songs, and I was like, what the heck does this mean? And, what's the one by Hosier where he talks about Take Me to Church? Yeah.
Yes.
And that one's like super weird and deep sounding. So I was looking for somebody to like explain these in depth, and nobody was. So I thought, I've got time. I'll do it.
I was in a social gathering at one point, and I heard this grandmother mention that song, the Take Me to Church song, and she was like, I love that song about Take Me to Church. And I didn't have the heart to pull this grandmother aside and be like, it's like a sex church. It's not a Bible church.
Oh my gosh.
This is not a potluck situation.
I don't know what committee you'd be on at this church, but I mean, I would not be going to this church. What are you talking about? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's so fun talking to baby boomers about pop music and stuff like that that's going on. I went to my grandparents' church once. I've been there many times, but I went there once for like their anniversary or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got cornered by this guy from like a super old Baptist denomination who spent like 30 minutes telling me about like the backbeat and dissonant rhythms and all sorts of stuff, and it's just like, he was a tuba teacher in an elementary school, and so like he really knew his stuff. He was telling me, and it was very, very funny. And so anytime I get to talk to a baby boomer about modern music, it always they never disappoint. They never do. But at the same time, that's not to say that all baby boomers have weird opinions about music. I've had lots of conversations with plenty where they'll really surprise me with the in-depth, and they have the cultural context. Yeah. Or heck, when we start talking about music from the 80s, there's some really interesting stuff. Yeah.
So have you always sort of been a fan of pop music?
Actually. Okay. So you guys were I think you're Christians, right? Or you were part of your band was like on a Christian label at some point. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Our band was very much on a Christian rock label, and our band was very much in the Christian music industry. For everybody that listens to the podcast, they've kind of followed our journey out of all of that.
Yeah.
But needless to say, we're happy talking about that kind of stuff. Like, it's kind of an ongoing journey for us. Davey and I are even in kind of different places with some of that stuff too. Like,
I think everyone is.
Yeah. Everybody's. So we're just kind of honoring everyone's journey through it. But church was a mega massive part of our growing up, of our experience. We were into like tooth and nail bands growing up. That was like all of our friends were into that sort of music. So like the Christian music scene when we were growing up was really formative for us, or introduced us to a lot of weird sounds and songs and maybe some untalented things too. But
no, I've got I have spirited discussions about the Christian music industry, but what I was trying to get at was just like, I grew up very much in the church. My dad is a chaplain for an old Baptist denomination, and so there were definitely like really strong opinions about what music was and wasn't okay to listen to.
Yeah,
and so I would say that the first music I listened to was like Weird Al Yankovic, honestly.
Yes, oh my gosh.
And honestly, it's so great with Weird Al because the music doesn't matter. It's all about the lyrics. So it was definitely foreshadowing of where, I would end up one day, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so listen to a lot of Weird Al, a lot of Newsboys, Reliant K, Stellar Cart, all that stuff.
I love how Weird Al is
but only old Newsboys. Wait, what?
Weird Al is like that's honestly pretty similar to a lot of us.
Yep.
Like, I don't know, there was something safe about Weird Al. It was like our parents were just like, yeah, he's a parody. It's a joke, and there's not a lot of risk in letting you listen to Weird Al. So you find it paired with Newsboys often.
Yeah, it's like it's safe. Like, gosh, who's that guy? Brian Regan. He doesn't claim to be a Christian comedian. But for some reason, when we were growing up, it was like all of the adults and like everybody kind of in our teenager, like 20-somethings crowd was like, Brian Regan is great, isn't he, guys? And it was almost like so obvious that they were just into him because he was clean, because he just had, his rhetoric was not vulgar and then the older that I get, the more I love vulgarity. It's like the only thing that makes me laugh anymore.
We love Pineapple.
Just love. We were listening to Pineapple. We were like, this is so ridiculous. How do you get away with these songs and these like rapey vibes in all of your music in the middle of the Me Too movement?
Like, oh my gosh, I have the same question. How in the world?
I don't know.
And how are people? How is YouTube like? They ding so many people for so much stuff, and yet they're still putting this music up on their platform. And you hear so many like YouTubers complain like, oh, YouTube dinged me for this, and they won't let me monetize for this. And we're listening to like, it's terrible. Oh my gosh.
It's crazy, man. So that's fun. Totally. So like, what was a lot of your first, like, I remember my first experience with pop music was definitively the Beach Boys, because it was like,
okay, cool.
I remember listening to that in the car with my mom. And she would always say that there was this radio station that was the beach music station. My mom was like musically illiterate, like didn't know how to categorize music outside of like what country music was. There's country and everything else. And then hymns, maybe. Yeah. So she just I didn't grow up in a family where they kind of cared about music. It was just like, if we're all working outside or something, then let's listen to it.
We're all working outside or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I kind of grew up on a compound. Yeah. Like all of my family kind of lived in this one area, and we always had projects to do. And it was like, free time was at a minimum because we always had yard work or something. Anyway.
Yeah. We would always listen to music while working. We'd all have our CD player, on some sort of like fanny pack sort of deal.
Yeah.
Walk around the house while sweeping. Yeah.
What were some of your favorite CDs when you were a kid?
Definitely the older Newsboys music. I listened to a lot of Family Force 5.
Okay.
And then, tons of stuff by Weird Al. I don't think that I never really got into like full CDs until maybe like I got a little bit older. And I didn't start listening to pop music until my youth pastor, of all people, led me to the Devil's music. And he started playing the like 80s rock and roll station in the car when we were running errands or something.
I love
that was that was the music that got me. Like as soon as I started hearing that, I started, I listened to the 80s, and then I was like, all right, well, I got to listen to the 90s, and then I got to listen to the 2000s, and then I got to listen to the top 40. And it was a drug I couldn't say no to,
Davey found, I think it was you, we were riding in the car, and you found the Now That's What I Call Music compilations on Spotify.
Oh yeah,
and it's
dude.
literally just all of this top 40 stuff, and like it's a gigantic playlist.
It's actually all like 40 of them, back to back. So like front to back, 1 through 11 of the first one, then 12 or 1 through whatever of the second one, just in one long list,
one huge list, and it was like taking a trip down memory lane. It was like one of the most nostalgic things for me. I know that like our culture is kind of like almost getting bored with everything, including nostalgia, but it's still kind of like this powerful force that kind of happens. I wanted to ask you about that because you think very critically about a lot of pop music, and it seems like for our generation, it's always like we're so reminiscent about shit that happened 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. Or do you guys remember like 3 months ago when this meme was a thing? It's like we become so nostalgic so fast. And I wonder, is it because as a whole, maybe we find the future so bleak that we're kind of just feel safer looking backwards than we do forwards? Or is it something else? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a really good question. I honestly, growing up, well, I would say more now that I have to an extent grown up.
Yeah.
Nostalgia's never really been a huge motivating factor for me. Mm-hmm. I've always been more focused on what's happening next and what do I need to do now to be able to move into phase 2 or 3 or 4. And so, nostalgia. And so it's always really weird for me to talk to people who are really motivated by like, they remember watching a ton of Disney movies when they were growing up. And, maybe I enjoyed a Disney movie here or there, but I'm not a big Disney guy. I'm ready to go do, step 2. So I think nostalgia always will be like a huge motivating factor for a large crowd of people. Yeah. And I typically look at that from the outside. So
okay.
That doesn't answer your question, but maybe if you asked it again, so because I think I sort of like went off on a tangent there and then I sort of forgot it. So complete honesty. That's guarantee from the Pop Song Professor. You will get honesty.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think something that's interesting is like, I do find myself like from a musical perspective driven by nostalgia. Like I'm really interested in the songs that hit me at this like formidable time in my life are the ones that like still hit me in some sort of way. And I have trouble actually getting that feeling or experiencing new songs in the same way. So I often just, when I hear about new songs, it's usually through a podcast or through a pineapple video online.
Did you watch the video while I was out of the room?
No.
Okay.
No.
I can only imagine how awesome that music video is for that song.
Fine. So I wonder, like, if you're not driven by nostalgia the same way, like maybe I am.
Well, no, you kind of you give the lie to what I said. Now that you mention that, there definitely are like a handful of songs that I listened to when I was younger that I can always go back to, and there's just like something about it that makes me feel a certain way that like new music usually doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in 10 years, maybe the songs I'm listening to now, I'll have that feeling. So I guess when you look at it that way, like there's some elements of nostalgia, I guess, that I kind of have that same feeling for. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I think that's what like nostalgia sort of robs your future self of nostalgia, because like I'm so focused on 1996 playlists.
I love that.
Yeah,
that is so good.
Yeah, I'm so focused on Now That's What I Call Music that like I'm not loading any new data into the nostalgia machine.
That's why they call nostalgia a drug, because it robs you of the ability to enjoy the drug later.
It's heroin.
It's heroin. I thought it was funny, and I was a little disappointed that you didn't make like an Asian trying to pronounce Halloween joke. When you were like, how are we?
He would get crushed by YouTubers if he did that.
You see, you guys in the 11 life, you're used to, I don't know who you host with, but YouTube, they demonetize me if I made a joke like that. Come on.
Really?
You guys probably make all sorts of great jokes, but well, I mean, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't.
Yeah, but rapey pineapples are all the rage.
Yeah. That's what I kind of don't understand. I think if you are a content creator who is a sizable chunk of the value or the worth of the platform, like if you have millions of followers and you're a reason that a lot of people log on every day, I think you're less likely to get flagged. And our friend Kevin McCreary, who has his own channel called Say Goodnight Kevin, gets flagged for like the most ridiculous stuff. I got flagged by Facebook recently because I put out this video just sort of giving everyone updates and addressing the fact that like some people don't feel safe with their information on Facebook anymore. And that's cool. We're clearly posting videos on Facebook. So like, you know, whatever we think about it, we're not thinking about it too hard. Facebook like wanted me to take it. I think I tried to boost the post and they were like, it's not approved because you mentioned Facebook in a negative light. And I was like, that is actually, I get it now. I get the dangers of this like micro censorship. Because I just thought like, well, maybe they've got a great algorithm. They've got a great reason for taking some stuff down. And, you know, or maybe like the bots just catch the wrong stuff.
Those are actual people that are doing that.
But it's real people. And I was like, I think to have a healthy platform, you need to have people address concerns about the platform anyway.
But the same people couldn't stop the Russians.
You could. Oh my God.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah. We can move on from that. I'm sorry.
we're sorry.
I mean, if you take that clip and you post it on YouTube with some sort of clickbaity title, I mean, you're going to get a ton of views too, because you know, who doesn't like to talk about how terrible YouTube can be, right?
Do we have to pay you now as a consultant?
As a consultant, as a YouTube consultant. I love it. That's awesome.
I mean, I work on a commission basis, so it's not going to be that much.
Well, we were thinking...
I win when you win, but...
I win, you win, we win. Davey and I were thinking before we got on to the interview that it might be fun to ask you a couple of poignant questions, since you spend so much time thinking about pop music, because like my entire life kind of revolves around pop music. And so I feel like I get why people think it's ridiculous. And then I've also been in sessions and worked with producers and worked with really, really talented people who do take this platform as artistry. And I do feel like a lot of times there's this weird sort of area where people want to be dismissive of pop music because it feels so topical and it feels so kind of like on the surface, and everybody knows that it's just like over-sexualization of everything. But pop music kind of since its inception, has been the over-sexualization. It's sort of mimicked the values of culture to a certain degree. I always think it's funny that there's this weird line of people that do take the art form really seriously. Like music on Top 40 sounds amazing from an engineering standpoint, from a mixing standpoint. It is pushing the boundaries of technology, and it does keep moving forward. I feel like in my experience with it and in my research, but then other people just want to be dismissive of it. Yeah. It's like, well, but what does it matter? What does it matter that you have all these amazingly talented people working on these projects if the message that's ultimately coming across is sort of vacuous? Like, is it really making the world a better place? I think you had mentioned that in one of your videos, and I thought that was an interesting lens that you were viewing that through.
Yeah, don't take my videos too seriously. Sometimes I say things and forget them.
Well, we don't. We invited you onto our podcast, so it's
self-deprecating humor. I love it. Yeah. No, you make a really good point. And honestly, I'll say that you can never outright dismiss something that a lot of people care about, because there's a reason that a lot of people care about it. And so you have to proceed with humility, with a sense of truth, but with also a sense of humility. I think that, well, and I should say too, like, musical talent, I have none. Gosh, yeah. No, I know very little as far as like how to put together good music. And so I try to keep my criticism respectfully to the lyrical side of things. But I'm very much a layman when it comes to pop music. And so I love a good hook. And I really love catchy music. And so when I'm trying to find a good song to listen to, I don't always think to myself, hey, what lyrics would be really deep and challenging right now? Because heck, I want to listen to fun music too.
Right.
And so my personal quest, my search, my journey is to find pop music that also has good lyrics, like pop music that sounds good. Because I think that a melody or a hook or a chord progression or whatever that brings people in and makes them want to listen, but then also has a message, has a lot more power. And so I think that my general complaint with pop music is that it doesn't take itself seriously enough. It's got the ears of so many people, and so often it's used commercially rather than benevolently.
Yeah, I think you whittled that down to something pretty important there.
And that's not to say that people can't try to make money off of it, of course. But I think that when you're making music, you're making a connection with people. And I think there's also a responsibility you have to balance there.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like maybe, Davey, please correct me if you disagree with this, but I almost feel like there is sort of this spectrum of music where it's like, you know what? Sometimes I have a Big Mac attack. I just want whatever Dr. Luke decides to come up with that day, in his creativity or whatever producer he's hiring and okaying and not at this point. And I just want to hear a good hook. I want to hear something kind of fun or catchy or something that elevates my mood in some way. And there are other times where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to spend a little bit more money in Whole Foods because I feel like my brain's starting to rot away. And there's this sort of spectrum of utility about music to where you can have, these songs that mean so much that become the catalyst for people like moving on to different phases in their life, getting over divorces, entering relationships, breakups. They sort of annotate your life in these really serious moments, and they categorize it and they catalog it for you in this really interesting way. And then at the same time, there's so much about the music that you consume every day that's just sort of throwaway. It's like, oh, this car commercial made me feel like this car is really serious. Like this is an excellent machine.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned like the utility of music. I think that there are some moments where you're just like, I want to listen to a song and I want it to say something to me. And then there's other times when I know we were talking about nostalgia. It's like looking back at, like, I can hear Marcy's Playground, Sex and Candy. And I know that's a ridiculous song, but the lyrics are like secondary at this point. It's the song itself and the tune and the actual just the notes and the way that recording was. It means something different to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a personal thing.
Well, we listen to a lot of music as like with a production ear, thinking about how did they get that tone? How does the arrangement work together? How did they simplify that idea? Like in the same way that you kind of like take apart these lyrics and like really talk about what you perceive to be the meaning behind them.
Yeah, and I think that having that, you guys are production literate. You're also lyrically literate. You're also musically literate, and you're a lot of things. And so when you listen to a song, I'm sure that you hear so much more than the average person when it comes to that. And so you can hear kind of the meaning or the intention behind different elements of that from a technical perspective or an intentional perspective. Me, it's limited mostly to the lyrics, unless I, ask somebody else for some help analyzing like what's the history of this chord progression or something like that. But yeah, I think that music can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And something that you were saying, Davey, that made me think, music, sometimes we do think of music as serving some sort of a purpose or a utility, but other times it just means something to us and it's an experience.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of functions of music and art in general are lesser functions. I think teaching lessons is a lesser function. I think entertaining is a lesser function. I think that the highest function of successful art is what C.S. Lewis calls being surprised by joy, where you hear something and it just stirs something within you that helps you to transcend to a different plane. I think maybe spiritually is the wrong word, but emotionally, mentally,
sure,
for people who, maybe it is going to be spiritually. And so like the song Walking on Air or Last Rose of Summer by Celtic Woman has always done that for me, or it did until I started listening to it too much, trying to get that feeling again. But it made me feel something where I was like, this song is, and I don't even know if it's that great of a song, but where my musical taste was at, it just was so much bigger than who I was. And I felt like it gave me a feeling or an experience that was bigger than who I was. And it helped me to be a bigger person as a result. And so I think that that's like the highest form of music, which I think gets close to what Davey, what maybe you're talking about with nostalgia. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that like the diminishing return over time, if like you lean too far into a song, it stops meaning that to you. You're giving it new context and new power every time you listen to it, and that power is shifting what it actually means to you over time.
Do you think it's watering down?
Yeah, so like it's interesting, and I think we all do this, and we maybe not so consciously, but it's like we have to be stewards of these moments that these songs mean to us. So it's like we can't, like, and I do this often where I'm like, I can't hit this Jeff Buckley Hallelujah today because I listened to it 4 times yesterday. I need to give it a month or
and
two.
you'll ruin it.
I will ruin the greatest song ever written if I do that. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, like, this beautiful thing means nothing to me.
That's the same reason that I don't watch The Princess Bride more than once every 2 years.
That's
or
smart.
The Lord of the Rings
so
once
smart.
every 2 years.
There you go. So smart.
Quick aside.
Okay.
Have you guys seen the Andre the Giant documentary?
I've heard about it.
You were talking about this the other night.
Watch it. It's on
Okay.
HBO. It's on the HBO app. It's incredible.
Cool.
All right,
Yeah.
now let's get back
I'm
into
gonna have to
it.
cue that up. Hey, Clifford, I would assume that you're probably familiar with this research that sort of keeps coming out, and I don't have the exact study to cite right now, but I feel like I've seen this written about in a bunch of different articles and journals where it's like scientists are beginning to look at our brains on pop and our brains on music. They're saying, like it's actually impossible for you to like music now as an adult or someone like in your 30s or 40s or 50s as much as you liked music in your teenage years, like when your brain was sort of forming. And I thought that was kind of interesting because we're at the age now where all of our friends are like not interested in we're interested in new music because it's our livelihood and we love it. Yeah. But like they only want to go back to the now, that's what I call music playlists. They only want to go see all of these legacy bands. They only want to go see Everclear and Smash Mouth.
It's just like our dad's going to see REO's Speedwagon.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it means something to them. And I don't mean to water that down because I think having those experiences is a very human thing. And it's very fun and can be freeing in a lot of ways. But yeah, I wonder what your take on that is, especially speaking to so many students who are at that age where what they're absorbing now is going to be music that they remember for the rest of their lives. Or I would assume maybe the world's moving too fast at this point, but.
Well, it sounds like it connects to what Davey was saying earlier, where if you are always thinking about the nostalgia at the point that you get to, you don't open yourself up to new experiences that you can have nostalgia about later. And so I would assume that people, they grew up on that, they're happy, maybe they consider their childhood the happiest time of their life. And so that music recalls memories and images of that time. And so I would assume that it connects to nostalgia. I would really be curious to read more about that. If you want to send me the link afterwards, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to everybody listening, I'm gonna try to not sound uneducated in this way because I did cite that as being a credible source. So I hope whatever link I come up with is also credible.
It actually wasn't a full article. It was just a headline. And it was just on Facebook.
It was on BuzzFeed.
And it actually took you to diet pills.
It took me to diet pills. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Please tell me it's a BuzzFeed article.
What is your favorite artist that you've ever reviewed? And it could be that you hate them in the best way or that you love them in the best way. They're just something fun to feel strongly about.
I mean, 11D7 by far.
We've not won any awards ever.
Clifford the Kid's ass.
Katy Perry has not invited me on her podcast. So, true. I mean, what am I supposed to say, right?
She probably won't. We were talking to her yesterday and we said, hey, Clifford's coming on the show, right? And she was like, I don't give a shit.
I wouldn't be surprised if she had, man. My favorite artist has been, childhood wise, it would have been Newsboys, but then Newsboys went off and did crazy boring stuff, and I really love their old stuff so much. But now I would say 21 Pilots has been kind of where I'm at, and it has been for a while. They're my favorite to explain. I've loved a lot of Panic at the Disco. The Weeknd has been really, actually, you know what? You know who's been really interesting recently? Eminem. Eminem is just the most fascinating lyricist to study. He's so vulgar and he's so self-confident, and he says a lot of things in a unique way that most people don't.
Yeah.
It's just to try to get into his head
yes.
is the most interesting thing. And then to appreciate the brilliance of the lyrics that he writes and how he puts together and the mechanics and his mastery of the English language. I might even say that Eminem might be a little bit more interesting to listen to than 21 Pilots, even if I appreciate some of the messages of 21 Pilots more. But my gosh, I did a video where I took a bunch of Eminem songs from his new album and a bunch from his hits. Yeah. And I compared the lyrical repetitiveness, and I compared the topics as he had shifted from album to album.
Yeah.
And just to try to get this bigger picture of who he was, it was just, oh my gosh, the dude is an enigma. And but at the same time, he says everything that comes into his mind, and yet he's still super confusing and super interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the difference though. What is in his mind is interesting, and someone else who says everything that comes into their mind.
The way that he packages the way he sees the world and delivers it back to people and interprets that. I've always been a huge fan of
same.
Eminem.
So who's the worst? Like, what's the worst song you have ever heard?
God, that's a heavy question. I put him on the spot for that.
I don't care. Clifford,
The
tell me.
worst song that I've ever heard.
The worst song ever written, in your opinion.
Well, and I'd like to hear the same from you guys too, especially with the musical side of things, because I'm sure that you probably know a lot more ways to hate a song than I do.
We think all music is beautiful because we're open-minded, but we want to know in your narrow view.
Yeah, real quick.
I'm just kidding.
Before we go into that, I'm going to give you time to think about that because it's a big question. One thing that I thought about a few minutes ago was like how insufferable it is to listen to music with either one of us. Like our wives.
Oh, yeah.
It's embarrassing. Like. Yep. To listen to music with either one of us because we are just going to probably hate it. You know what I mean? We're going to find some reason to hate it. We're going to be cynical and be, basically our default mode is asshole first. And then if we're pleasantly surprised, we'll graduate from asshole into something that's a little less first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder, like,
you need a T-shirt. You really need a T-shirt
it
for that.
sounds like the new Trump slogan.
11-7, asshole first. But are you like? Do your friends feel the same way about you?
The more sensitive ones do. I typically surround myself with people who want to be analytical, but my wife will feel that same way where, like, just yesterday we went to like an antique store and I was making snide jokes about how these antiques look like 30 years, like they just look like garbage from 30 years ago, which wasn't smart on my part. And then, I might say something nice later. I might find something that actually works, but I've just got to get that out in the air. Like, I just have this need to be funny or to say something snide. So yeah, there are a couple of people who would probably tell you that I open my mouth to criticize too quick, but I'm not wrong. That's the thing.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
That's
but I would say to help you, or maybe if your wife is ever listening to this, I struggle with the same thing with my wife because she's like, you're so negative. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I believe that the rest of the world probably looks at me, and if they spend enough time with me, they're like, God, don't you like anything? And I'm like, yeah, I actually like almost everything, but I have to think through. I have to poke holes in it. I really want to kick the tires on this thing and see what it's made of. And just because I don't like this aspect of it doesn't mean that there are these other things about it that I appreciate. It's just that it's so much more fun to hate on things.
Yeah.
Than it is
so much more interesting.
It's because I feel like it spawns more conversation than you and I just sitting around talking about, like, I really love Katy Perry's hair. Even though that song sucked.
Her hair is so great. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in this, we had been talking about college professing and things like that. I teach online classes, and so I have discussion board posts, and I've been an online student taking discussion board posts, and discussion board posts are the dumbest assignment that anybody ever could have thought of.
Oh, thank you.
Apologies to anybody who may be listening who really just loves them.
Administration in colleges need to hear this.
Okay, good. Yeah. If you are a college university professor, your retention's going to go up, your attrition's going to go up. Everybody's going to love you if you get rid of discussion boards. But students, so often the temptation is they make an initial thread, and in all of their replies are like, I agree with you so much. This is so true. I just think that you're right. Yes, here's like a couple of vague reasons about why I think you're right. And so in all of my, because I'm required to have like a couple of discussion board posts, in my instructions, I always tell them, disagree with people. Find somebody you disagree with because it's more fun that way.
Yes.
And I think I actually use the word fun or interesting. I'm just like, please disagree. There has been one hurt feeling on one of my discussion board posts this semester. So mission accomplished.
One out of how many feelings?
75.
75 feelings. I think 1 out of 75 feelings getting hurt is a pretty great rate that you have there. 74
out of 75 feelings approve. So we're good.
We haven't forgotten that you have to tell us your worst song of all time.
Oh, my favorite music to hate on is Katy Perry's Witness album.
You really don't like Katy Perry?
You see, I like her older stuff because it was fluffy for fluff's sake and it sounded good. So I can throw on an old Katy Perry song and listen to it and have a good time. But when she tweeted about how like this is a new era of woke pop, and then she gave us like the biggest soft soap nothings, it was just like the hypocrisy was too much for me. It was like, all right, now I gotta hate on this because you didn't you tried to get a lot of people to be excited about how social justice warrior were, and then you had nothing to say. It's
presumptuous. I think it's the presumption that pride before the fall.
What song is on that record? Is that the Swish Swish Bish?
Yeah, Swish Swish Bish.
That's supposed to be woke
Chained to the Rhythm. Say what?
That's woke pop.
This is why we need to have Katy Perry on the show. Like, Just explain, like, what are we missing? And don't say, well, if you don't get it, you don't get it. No,
it is whatever you need it to be.
It is what you need it to be. I get it, but what does it mean to you? And what is it? What is it about it?
I need it to be interesting.
Yeah, that you feel is
I needed
so
to sell
woke
records
about it. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's like the with Chained to the Rhythm. Her music video is fairly political, actually. So she kind of got into some stuff vaguely, but even in the lyrics of the song, she keeps referring to like, you're all just living in a bubble, but she never tells us what we're living in a bubble for. And it's like obvious that she wants people to be able to infer Donald Trump. But if you're going to talk bad about Donald Trump, just talk bad about him. Are you not willing to sacrifice a single's worth of sales just to make say what you believe? And I just want somebody to say what they believe, you know?
Hey, how did you feel about Childish Gambino's music video? The one.
Oh, the one he's put out.
Yeah.
the recent one. This is America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I loved that song.
I did too.
That was really interesting. I think that people maybe read too much into it because it was so rich and it was so complicated. I feel like people maybe pulled some things out of it that weren't there.
Yeah.
But overall, like it was really, really good. It was just like a really good picture of a very, very complicated topic. What did you think about it?
Oh, I loved it. I honestly, I was late to the party. The first time I saw it I was at a friend's.
My YouTube channel?
Yeah, no, not yours. Okay. Sorry, I've watched the pineapple video 5 times, but I didn't see the.
Gosh. Okay, so that's honestly kind of embarrassing because that's not that great of a video.
Stop it. This is what we do. We all do this. Like somebody asked me, like, oh, which song should I listen to of like 11E7 or like which episode of the podcast should I listen to? And I'm like, the latest one. Don't go any further back. Actually, don't listen to anything. Just wait until next week and start listening then. You know what I mean? It's like anything that's in the past, we're all like, shit, I hope no one ever hears that ever again. But
okay.
Yeah, no, I honestly, the first time I heard it or saw the video was fairly recently. It was after a long night where some friends were showing me Little Dicky, which I've not seen or heard any of that yet. I'm so late to
dude is
Really?
hilarious. Yeah.
Dude, you're late to Lil Dicky.
Pillow Talk.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my
that's pretty
God.
funny.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but I it's one of those moments where you watch that video. If you don't have a lot of context, which I had some, like I knew there was a lot of hype around it. Then you see it, and it's still like a moment where you just sort of sit quietly at the end, and you're like, wow, that was something. You know, that wasn't just candy. That was like some actual. I just got some high fiber.
Well, that's what I find interesting. I don't know anybody sort of in the pop realm taking, I don't even want to say a strong political stance. I want to say strong intellectual thought about what is happening politically everywhere. I think what I'm seeing right now in pop music is that you have a lot of country artists, you know, that are kind of like vaguely Trump supporters. Some of them consider themselves to be woke, but it's still just kind of this, it's feeding into the nostalgia. It's like pickup trucks and girls and bear and it's like, I get it. I think those things have their place, but I think I think what I find so interesting about hip hop and rap is that if I'm looking for somebody who's saying something important or expressing their reality in a way that I need to know because I don't see their reality, that's also found in that genre. And I feel like it's more likely to be found in that genre. And even in like underground hip hop and like stuff that we even have here locally is like, so I feel like it's intellectually so much more thought provoking than just over sexualization of everything.
Yeah, you'll find the good and the bad in hip hop for sure. But I think there's hip hop that's more about the beat. And even if you tell people like, hey, Pineapple was really stupid, they'll say, oh, guys, it's just about the rhythm. It's just about the beat, you know? And so there is hip hop that's like that. But Eminem is not like that. And Kendrick Lamar is not like that. And I think that just as a medium, rap and hip hop lend themselves to being about something because they're a lyrics based genre where if you didn't have the lyrics, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, and now I'm like blanking on any other rap artist who has something to say, which I know there are plenty, but they wouldn't exist because the lyrics are what matters. So it's just that I kind of didn't realize how great rap was until I started looking at lyrics, and then I just kept finding like a higher frequency of people having something to say, whether it's like you said, an expression of personal experience, or having something to say politically or about culture, or just wanting to get into something really deep, even locally, or somebody who's a professional or an amateur or whoever. And it's really awesome. Makes me want to go learn how to rap myself.
That's awesome.
But
We should,
like you said at the beginning, I am incredibly white. And so
you know what? It's not like we have any room to like to talk about that. We're so white too. But I'd like to be aware of my whiteness. I
We're
like
woke white.
Yeah, well, I don't even know about that. I don't know if that's the right thing. But I do think that the conversation is important, and there's stuff you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know that I don't know that I don't need to, that I need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going to rap and hip hop is a catchy way to learn some of those lessons.
Oh my gosh. I also kind of feel like I could be way off base here, and there are probably musical and pop scientists who would disagree with me, but I also get this impression that hip hop is kind of the first of the genres to start accepting new forms of technology and new ways of sort of altering timbral qualities to music. Like they adopt turntables, and they start adopting sampling and all of these like, super shitty drum machines that came out in the 80s that were supposed to sound like real drums. They adopt and like do something completely different, than what was intended for it. And they start using all these electronic elements, and like with trap and like all of these different sort of underground forms of electronic music. I almost feel like they're the first people to sort of start adopting those technologies and working them into tracks in a creative way.
And then you get pop music and mainstream music. They borrow all of that, use it until it's dead, and wait for hip hop to come out with something new.
Yes. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, first awkward pause, down. Good.
Clifford, the big red pop song professor.
Oh no.
And you're ginger too.
Dude,
I can't escape it.
I told him, I was like, he's heard that joke so many times. You better not tell that joke.
I'm sorry.
You better not do it.
I actually met girls named Emily Elizabeth growing up.
No way.
And it was just, I don't know whether I made it more awkward or just whether the situation was awkward, but it would happen, and it was burned indelibly onto the cortexes of my mind, or however you would say
so
that.
what would happen? So, like, would you like go sit beside her like a dog?
I don't know. Usually other kids would say something awkward, and then we would just kind of stare at each other and then never speak of it again. And it would just kind of always be in the back of our heads.
Now she's your wife?
No, my wife's name is April. I tried to stay as far away from that as possible.
Sure, that was smart.
Yeah.
Good
So
work.
tell me
Strategic marriage.
Tell me what it is that you really find attractive or intellectually thought-provoking about 21 Pilots. I know I phrased that like an asshole. I don't mean it that way. Because we played a bunch of shows with them when they were first coming up.
Oh, really?
And at the same time that our band was sort of like winding down and imploding on itself, we ended up doing some shows with this band called 21 Pilots, and we played a bunch in the Midwest with them, and they were always fun guys to hang out with, and I literally nothing bad to say about that band whatsoever. But I didn't get their music. Davey did. Davey was
I
like,
called it, dude.
He's like, this is something really important. This is cool, and this is going to be the next big thing. And I listened to their music, and not that I'm like not a fan of their music. I was just like, oh, this is interesting. Like, this is them doing their thing, and it's creative, and I think that it's saying really important things, and that it's a really intimate form of expression. But I didn't get what the mass. I still don't get what the mass appeal of 21 Pilots is. Help me, help me, song professor. You're my only hope.
Well, I've got like 20 or 30 videos you could go watch. So if you want to watch those, then come back to me. We can kind of rap about that.
Get to the chase, Clifford.
I can give you the cliff notes on that. But
Sing.
So it comes down to two things. And one for me, with the music that I listen to, it's always got to sound good and good to my uneducated ears. So standards are low.
So like the Newsboys.
Yeah. Well, old.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right. All right. Well, but anyway, So they always sounded they sounded really cool. I like the rap parts. I like the hooks. I like the variation. I came off of loving a lot of reggae music and a lot of Euro dance pop. I don't think the Euro dance pop translates so much, but a lot of like the synthesizer and the electronics. Oh yeah, for sure. But Cascada mostly. Cascada is where it's at.
And Aqua.
But
we cannot forget about Aqua.
Bass Nectar. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
But I just got into some reggae, and so the fact that they mix so much stuff up, I don't think I have ADHD, but it's hard for me to stay focused. So when you have so many different things showing up, it was just always interesting. But as far as the lyrics go, he plays on two sides of the coin. There's a very intellectual side where he considers his own inner thoughts. He kind of puts them on an operating table. He chops them up. And then he serves them up to everybody else in songs like Car Radio or Ride, or ones where he talks about relationships with his wife or girlfriends or whatever. And so it was always really interesting to kind of see somebody else who was over analytical like me. And so it felt like a kindred spirit. But he also, on the other side, will get very emotional where he'll express some of the things that he's going through that are very, and by him, of course, talking about Tyler Joseph, who writes the lyrics, but he'll talk about like mental health, which has been something that I've had to put a lot of thought into over the years, and something that my subscribers, just like a lot of them, talk about this kind of stuff in the comments when I talk about the songs. And so talking about some of those things, but he also has like this message of empowerment. So in like a song like Holding On To You or Guns for Hands, it's not just that he says, hey, there's a problem and we all are depressed and we're all anxious, but he also says like there's a solution, and he talks about using art or religion, or talking about community, or just willpower, and he kind of gives hope, like there is an ability to overcome the darkness. And so I definitely get into like this rhapsody about how great 21 Pilots can be when I really get into it. But there have been times when I've sat there like in tears listening to some of their songs where I just felt like their music and the words that they were saying were kind of helping me to get through something. So
is it your pop gospel?
Define pop gospel.
Hashtag. No, I just mean like it's something as seemingly innocuous as a pop song can have a profound effect on, like, there could be something that you find relatable about it. It clearly this band, Tyler's like lyrics, like that, whatever attracts you to that, feels like there's a really deep connection between you and that art. Maybe not Tyler himself, because we don't know, but to me, that's what I would define as like the pop gospel. It's something that is supposed to be innocuous, but that somehow speaks to an inner truth or encourages an honesty in a certain way that you don't expect it to.
Yeah, I would say it hooks me with the music and it hits me with the lyrics, and I would say that a song that can do that is going to be my pop gospel.
Yeah.
So if I'm defining that all right.
Yeah, absolutely. You're doing a great job, Clifford.
Oh, thanks so much.
Don't you worry about it, pal.
You guys are going to take this, you're going to like cut up samples, you're going to make it sound like I'm saying something really terrible. That's how this works, right? This is like gotcha journalism.
Yep. We are like gotcha journalists.
This is where we pull
just replace every time I say 21 Pilots with the phrase Katy Perry. That's how this works, right?
11E7 is actually what we'll do.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's awesome. So a lot of times on the podcast, whenever we have guests, we like to ask them some questions. So no pressure, low pressure. And if you don't have answers for them, that's totally okay. And you can always say pass. But if you need a minute to pontificate or to figure out what you think about it, that's cool too. Low pressure.
Yeah, and to be fair, I figure out what I have to say about things by talking out loud. So first I say a lot of wrong things.
Yeah, me too.
And then after I've listened to myself say them, I'm like, oh, those were all wrong. I now know what I mean to say the whole time.
And Clifford, that's why you're an excellent guest already.
Oh, good.
We have a friendship ahead of us.
Only one awkward silence so far.
That's true. We're like an hour in.
And we could always blame that on FaceTime too, because there's a little bit of a lag too between.
You can edit that out, right?
We're going to edit the awkward silence to be like 40 minutes long.
Yes. People are like, where's the rest of the episode?
It's me between two ferns.
Sit in the awkwardness. That's our art.
This needs to be Zach Galifianakis with Between Two Ferns.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's some of my faves. Hey, Clifford, where does love come from?
Oh my gosh. Why are you asking me these kinds of questions?
Because I want to know.
Because we're curious.
I mean, for me, the theological answer is to say that love comes from God and that he's the source of all good things. Typically, I would say that love is either manifested from, on a human level, manifested in or comes from a sincere desire for the good of other people. And so typically, I think it's going to come out of affection and mutual benefit, and then it can develop into a close connection.
So not unicorns?
So it doesn't come from unicorn horns, or
I mean, I first I tried to give a theological answer, and then I tried to give like a psychological answer. But we could do a mythological answer too.
But
Yes,
how about
unicorns.
this? Would it be any different for you to just give us like an off the cuff human answer? Like not a learned answer, like a guttural answer. Like, where does love come from? Do you know it when you feel it? Have you ever been in love? How do you define love? Is it a feeling? Is it a choice? Is it something that like sometimes you encounter, sometimes you don't, but you just decide to keep looking for it?
Oh man, see, why are you guys asking questions that where I'm not allowed to be analytical? That's not quite fair.
We've backed you into a corner, Clifford.
You have in an emotional corner. Yeah, human wise, I would say love comes from. I would say it comes from admiring somebody and thinking that somebody is special, not for what they've accomplished, but just for who they are as a person. And I think that more love can come and back that first love up through a choice. I think that choice is important, and I think that the true expression of a feeling is strengthened or created through, and now I'm starting to get more analytical again, but through action and through doing something about it. And yeah, but no, I would say it's about somebody who you think is valuable, not because of what they've done, but because of who they are.
And what do you think makes someone who they are? Is it choices? Is it circumstance?
No, it's a little bit of both for sure. I think we can't escape our environment, and so I think we're going to choose to be who we are based off of the raw materials that we're given.
Not because of
I love
what
that.
I've done.
I love that. That's a great answer, Clifford.
Oh, good. Oh, thank goodness.
They're going to flag us for worship songs.
Yeah, they're.
Oh my gosh. Hey, whenever you die,
Okay.
what would you like for your epitaph to say?
Oh,
Here lies Clifford, the big dead song professor. It's so rude. I'm sorry, I'm rude.
I want my exact subscriber count inscripted on my tombstone.
My God.
How many sales of my course I made, all that good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I would say, and it would be honestly the thing that is the hardest for me.
Yeah.
And it would be, here is somebody who valued people over accomplishments. That is, if I can accomplish that, I will have done in my lifetime the hardest thing that I could think of doing. And it's not that I don't value people. It's just that it's so much easier to put time and energy and resources into doing things. It's just my drive and what makes me tick is like, all right, check the box, move on to the next box. And so the ability to be able to say people are more important, I'm going to take the time to talk to somebody or do something that doesn't push my agenda forward, but helps push somebody else's agenda forward. And there's nothing that I can get out of it. Like if I can figure that out, that's going to be the most impressive thing I could ever do.
So just like a magnanimous behavior, benevolent behavior, doing something for like in someone else's best interest, something sacrificial,
or even just breaking it down to not doing something in my own best interest. Even if, honestly, if I can help somebody else, that's great. But also if I could just figure a way to chill the frick out and just enjoy life and find happiness in the day-to-day, I'd be fine with that too.
Do you know that Davey and I are on that exact journey right now? Like especially when I sort of hit, I started like coming up on my 30s, I realized that I had developed all of these habits and behaviors and these mental road maps that I had made, these ruts that I had sort of worn in my brain. I suffered from like crippling anxiety. Like my anxiety was giving me health problems, and it wasn't that like I couldn't, like I was a performer, or I am a performer. Like I don't mind being in front of people. I like being in front of people. I like experiencing that sort of community, but it was something else about the way that I was dealing with attention or with human interaction or with interpersonal relationships, trying to shield myself from having them go south and trying, like realizing that I was trying to control and manipulate so many things around me just to try to be right, to try to be correct, to try to be my best self instead of just allowing myself to be present. Davey and I talk a lot about sort of stepping outside of yourself and watching the traffic, watching all the thoughts, like catching yourself when you realize that, oh my gosh, this thought that I'm having right now actually is putting my stomach in knots. Let me just stop the thought. Let me just stop it right here and now.
Or even
I've
just
tried that.
Even just acknowledging the thought.
Yeah, acknowledging that it exists and that just the fact that you can stand outside of it and see that it's happening means that you can figure out a way out of the room.
Yeah.
That you can figure out a better way. I don't know if it sounds like you and I are going through something sort of similar.
Oh, it really does. Yeah. And I'd love to hear more of your thoughts about, maybe some, you don't have to go into everything, but I'd be really curious to hear some of the ways you use to combat like those sorts of, like you mentioned, habits that you'd formed and how you develop and change and grow as a person. For me personally, I've been trying to get into like meditating and journaling more, and spending more time just without an objective. Like here's 30 minutes where there's no Netflix, there's no cell phone, there's no checklist, there's nothing. Like just like you said, acknowledge thoughts, try to figure them out, figure out how thoughts make you feel, think about it. But I'll tell you what, sitting in a room quietly by yourself is the most intimidating thing I can think of.
Because, dude, same.
Yeah.
Like, even when you mentioned like not having an objective for 30 minutes and meditating instead, like I have the Headspace app, which is like a meditation app, but even that is an objective for me. It's like, I need to do the meditation today. Like I need to do it because it's going to help me. It's going to help me be better. And if I'm better, I can do X, Y, Z. It's like I sit down and I'm like, okay, meditate time. Push the button. Meditation over. Let's roll. You know what I mean?
Check.
Yeah, check. I checked another box. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I'm not good at it. Looking at the traffic is like the one thing that has helped me in the past, where it's like, oh, you are not your thoughts, or you are not your current emotions and current feelings. You are something else. And all of that is just part of the body experience and mental experience that you're sort of sitting in right now. So like just being able to get out of the car and just get on the side of the road and then just watch the traffic and let yourself feel whatever it is, but just acknowledge that, like when you're meditating, if your mind wanders, just acknowledge that it's wandering. Don't like force it to come back. Just say, oh yeah, there it is. And you start seeing the things as separate from you. As opposed to like, often I can get to where like, oh, I'm anxious. I am anxious. You know what I mean? But like, no, I'm just having anxious feelings right now. It's not that I'm not anxious. There are parts of the environment and in myself that are causing these anxious emotions and feelings right now.
Yeah, that's really sweet. In fact, I might even write that down. You are not your thoughts. I think that was a good way of saying it.
Hashtag. Pop gospel.
Hashtag pop gospel. That's Davey's pop gospel for the day.
Can you guys write a song called You Are Not Your Thoughts? Your next album?
You are not your thoughts. Oh my God. Thank you.
I can sit there weeping listening to your songs too. Yeah.
Hey, so what are some of these, what are the times in your life where you feel the most stressed out? What are the times where you feel the most anxious?
I would say it can happen in two ways. One, if there is too much of a list of things to do and things are getting crushed, and I feel, so that's the first thing. But then if you compound that with, oh wow, I'm neglecting important relationships in my life, and I feel like I'm failing at something that's really, really important. So it typically, when there's too much to do, or feel like I'm neglecting relationships. Well, and you going back, I was going to ask you guys a question too. You had said you're thinking through a lot of this stuff, and Davey gave an answer. But Matt, I was curious to hear, if you had any, what have been your strategies to kind of work through some of this anxiety and some of these, figuring out, valuing other people type stuff.
For me, like working internal shit out, I do that the best via just like songwriting. Because there are times where you're right. I feel like songwriting is sort of a form of meditation in and of itself, because you can't just sit down and be like, and just start beating things around and have something happen. You really do have to get quiet and sort of let everything else die down and then kind of listen for what's happening. Like what are the things that sort of rise to the top of the silence when you give it some time. And that's really hard for me, because I want to sit down and be like, I can think through words and I'm going to make a melody happen. And but it really just, it has to, like in my creative process, it literally is just sitting down being like, I have to be okay with coming up with 100 different melody ideas that I throw away before I find one that like I'm okay. And I have to do that by getting in the sandbox. Just get in the sandbox and get quiet and then try some stuff out. As far as like anxiety goes with other people, I just try to be mindful of when I start feeling it. Like when I start to feel stressed out around other people or with friends, like I feel like I'm kind of a hard person to be friends with for long periods of time because I can have this initial like really quick burn where it's like everything's fun and we're having awesome conversation, but then there are times where I just need to be quiet and I still feel close to people when I'm quiet with them, but then there's this anxiety of like, should I be saying something? Should I not be saying something? Like, should, you know, like, or if I behave in this way, or if I tell this person how I really feel or I think, like, is it going to adversely affect our relationship? And am I valuing them enough? And like, it sounds kind of similar to what you go through where it's like, I want to make sure that you know that you're valued, and then you put all of your time and attention and effort into showing people that you value them, but then they may not accept that value in the way that you're giving it, or they may not realize that it takes a lot for you to give in this way, and that you're kind of giving them a 10 and they only see a 2, you know, like thinking, almost having too much empathy to the point where you hate yourself through other people. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, for sure.
But I'm trying to get better at it.
We all are.
Yeah.
We all are. Well, hopefully we all are.
I Want to Get Better by Bleachers.
That what?
That's a song. There's a song called I Want to Get Better by the band
I wanna
Bleachers.
Get Better.
He knows it.
Yeah.
He does. He's the
Oh, wait, now you're going to get flagged for copyright, aren't you?
I don't give a shit.
You guys are
Just
intense.
watching the traffic.
That's awesome. So is there anything that you want besides maybe a
Ludens.
Luden's lozenge? Is there anything that you want to talk about, that you want to push? Do you have a new video coming out? Do you have a new project in the works? Anything that you want for our audience to know about? Because I know they're going to love it. I sound so full of shit when I say that. I know they're going to love it. I just know they're going to love it, Cliff. Whatever you decide to come up with, they're going to find the enchantment.
Actually, the lozenge does sound pretty good right about now.
Do you have tuberculosis?
Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
I've seen this
I don't go to doctors.
Old TB Cliff over here.
You know, I would shout out, just the channel. I've got a couple of like little projects in the works. It's going to be a while before any of them come to fruition, but just putting out some videos. I think that probably the most fun thing for people is that, you know, if you comment on my videos and suggest songs that you would like to hear me explain, as long as it makes sense for me to do it in the YouTube climate, then, you know, I really try to... I never explain Selena Gomez because they will put a copyright infringement. They'll slap me on the wrist so fast. Really? Just for reading their lyrics out loud and talking about them.
Just for reading Selena Gomez. That's great.
But yeah, I don't know. If people want to come and hang out, we try to make it a community over there.
That's awesome.
I don't know. I feel like I should have like a book or something I should be talking about. But you know, if I write a book one day, I just want everybody to remember that book possibility. All right, we'll just kind of put a pin in it for now.
I'll proofread it for you.
Oh, thanks so much. Appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm really putting myself out there with you, Cliff. I mean,
I appreciate that. But you know, I've read your lyrics on websites and stuff, and I don't know if I really trust your punctuation. So
you shouldn't.
I don't know.
You shouldn't. Sometimes I make words up.
All right. Well, I mean, actually, that's not so bad. I mean, that is underrated. Making words up is way underrated.
I know. Have you ever seen Mary Poppins? All that shit.
Yeah.
Those aren't real words. Those aren't real words. Bert's not even
really?
British.
Are you serious? Yeah. This changes everything. Oh my gosh.
We're woke.
Yeah. Wow. So woke. Yeah. No. I'm annoying my wife. I quote like the Jabberwocky, Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland stuff. I love those made up words. It's fun. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Cliff, this has been fantastic. I feel so honored that you came on to our show, and this was a really fun conversation for me. I hope we can do more fun stuff in the future.
Hey,
we should figure out a project that we can work on together.
I've got a podcast too. So if you guys ever want to come on that.
Nah.
I mean, it's not the 11 Life podcast. Take your standards, take them 3 notches lower, and then look down. We'll see how it goes. But so, full disclosure, I do need to admit something.
Okay.
And this is because I don't know whether when we finish podcasting and we say goodbye and hey, thanks for coming, everybody, or however you guys do it, you just turn off FaceTime. But I didn't realize that we started podcasting right away at the very beginning. So the first 30 seconds, it took me 30 seconds to realize that we were actually recording. So
Cliff, what
there
is
you
this,
go.
amateur
That's
hour?
information. It is amateur. Well, everybody else I've ever podcasted with, we always sit around and talk to each other for like 5 minutes first. So you are not the industry standard.
We just click record, bro.
You know what? We've never.
All right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're not the industry standard because we kind of hate the industry standard. And also, we'd much rather just sort of flip everything on and then catch all the little weird awkwardness of like of the human interaction.
I think
and
that's
share
great.
that than we would to be like, we found that whenever we cold start the show with the guest on there, a lot of times they just sort of clam up and it's like, dude, 30 seconds ago, we were literally about to solve all the world's problems. And now what the fuck happened?
Well, if you were looking to capture some of the awkwardness, you succeeded because you captured 30 seconds of empty awkwardness.
Yes. It's just being a human. We try to we try to not edit too much out. Like we try to just make sure that the information is good, but that like, we don't need a hyper reality of what human interaction looks like. This is our life. This is the world that we're living. Yeah.
I think that's great. And it's no fun to edit a podcast anyway. It is very, very boring.
It takes forever. Yeah. So, well,
cool.
This is fantastic. And do you have any final words?
Thanks for having me on, guys. Love your music.
Okay.
There we go.
Sweet. All right.
And your podcast too. There you go. I'll say lots of nice things about you.
Yeah, you do.
You can use it in the like the intro reel or something.
Yeah, you've made it onto the Mount Rushmore of guests in the past month.
Oh,
perfect.
Give us something.
You guys post like once a month or once every 2 weeks, right?
It's once a week.
It's actually once a week. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's
well, that's pretty good. But there's 4 guys in Mount Rushmore. There's 4 weeks in a month. That's bullshit.
Well, it was a little bullshit, Cliff. I'm glad you caught me.
I can do basic math.
If you could give us a just say anything outlandish like 11D Life saved my marriage or 11D Life paid for my rehab.
Kids, I started listening to 11D Life back when, I was your age. And since then, not only is, yes, my marriage better, but my dogs are more well-behaved. They don't crap in my yard anymore. They crap in my neighbor's yard. It's great.
Yes.
And my Lucky Charms taste better.
Passing the buck.
Yes. I love it.
There you go. Cool.
That's amazing. Hey, Cliff, thank you so much. I know that we've taken up way too much of your time today. But yeah, let's, I genuinely mean this. Let's stay in touch. We didn't even talk about a lot of the other sort of like college stuff. We just having too much fun goofing off and talking about pop gospel. But yeah, and please send our regards to who I'm sure is your lovely wife for giving up her Saturday time with you.
And having to walk really quietly on the first floor so that there's not noise in the background.
That's awesome. Cool, man.
Cool. Can do. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, dude.
See you, man.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.